All right, so we will see if we can make a good long, well, won't be too long, two-hand cast in here. Let's see. About what I expected. If you have that reel kind of laying more on its side, I feel like you get fewer backlashes because of that. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are here in the garage going over some casting techniques and tips and just application for different casting styles. This one is one that I certainly use a lot when distance is what I'm looking for. First thing that comes to mind with this cast is a deep running crankbait. Something that I'm trying to get just as much distance, as much line out as possible. And with a deep crankbait, that's to get the bait deep. The more line you've got out, the longer that retrieve is, the deeper that bait's going to get. Top waters, I do a lot with a two-hand cast. Deep crankbaits, football jig, anything when you're open water, trying to make a big, long cast, that's when you're going to use this technique of the two-hand cast to really try to get just as much distance as absolutely possible. Really hard to show this perfectly in the garage. We'll show some clips from different tournaments and stuff where I was using this a lot. I think at Lake Chickamauga and the Bass Pro Tour that we fished down there. I was throwing a DT14, a DT16 a lot in that tournament, and making long casts with that bait and burning it back in that particular situation. But any of those times when you're open water, accuracy matters. I mean, I want to hit a general place out there, but more so than anything, I'm just trying to get the bait a long way away from the boat. And sometimes, like I said, that has been a big key, especially with crankbait fishing, trying to get the bait deep. But I'm not trying to put this in a 5-gallon bucket or anything. This is just get the bait out there, cover a lot of water, get a big long presentation. So a little bit of the mechanics I'm going to try to show you here, and then I'm actually going to take a knee and do my best to show what a cast would really truly look like that you're going to make. For one, this is never one where I'm going to cross body cast. So I'm not going to have the rod in my right hand and or the reel in my right hand and put my left hand over and do it like that. It's always going to be, whichever hand the reel is in, I'm going to be casting over that shoulder. It's going to be kind of a straight back and then cast, directly over the shoulder. A lot of times I'll even actually step into this cast. So this is, if I'm really trying to put every bit of effort I've got into this cast, it's going to be a deal where I literally take a step into that cast to try to exaggerate and get all the distance I absolutely possibly can into it. If it's, reel in my left hand, the butt of the rod's going to be in my right hand, and I'm going to bring that rod back, go across my left shoulder, and then try to put as much forward momentum into it. Another key part, you're going to swing back and load the rod and then take the rod forward, and I'm wanting to end with that rod angled up a little bit, and I'm usually going to end out here. Okay, this is a full swing. This is back, and then a full swing forward like that, coming more straight over my shoulder than what I can do here in the garage. But full swing over, and then ending with that rod tip kind of pointed up, so that bait's going to get a lot of height as well as a lot of distance. Obviously, if you go too high, you're going to lose some of your distance. But try to get a good mix of that height and allow that bait to carry a long way. So, all right, we're going to take a knee and try to do our best to kind of show exactly what this would look like. All right, so two-hand overhand cast, always going to have my offhand on the butt of the rod, down there to get a good grip, and that just gives you more leverage. When you come back and you swing forward, you're using the strength of both arms at that point to really put a lot into it. And I'm going to come back here pretty close, and I'm really going to extend out, which I'm unable to do really well in here, but extend out. And I'm not always straight up over my shoulder, completely straight over it. I'm going to be a little bit out just because I feel like I gain a little bit of strength being out just a little bit. But come back and then really put a lot of heat on that thing, like I can't do in here. Come back and put a lot of heat on that thing, going forward like that, to really get a lot of distance on that bait. And timing your release of that where you're at that key spot where, I'm kind of letting the bait go up here, and that's going to allow it to really carry, a great distance. Maybe even letting go a little bit back here, and that's going to allow it to carry a great distance you know, along with the wind. And this is one where I probably, you know, I take as much thumb pressure off of the reel at this point of the cast as I possibly can. If you're throwing into the wind or something, you know, you've got to get a little bit of thumb pressure to keep from backlashing. But when I get to here, I start releasing pretty good with my thumb. By the time I get to here, especially if I've got the wind at my back, man, it's free spool all the way. And that's going to allow that thing to really air out there extremely well. For long casting like that, that Bass Pro cranking stick is one of my favorite ones, especially, you know, obviously with a crankbait. The 7.6 medium heavy loads really, really well, and I'm able to get a lot of power and a lot of distance way out there. And this is a place where I use that Bass Pro Platinum reel a ton, 6/8 to 1 gear ratio on my crankbaits. And something else, if you're really trying to get as much out of your cast, line size plays a big part of that. You know, on my deep baits, I use a lot of 12-pound XPS fluorocarbon. I use 14 on some of my shallower stuff, but that 12, man, it's a good diameter, and it really helps to get that bait out there really, really far. You know, 10, sometimes you might gain a little bit of distance and a little bit of depth for sure. So if you're trying to get everything out of it, dropping down to 10 is not a bad deal if you're in a place where the cover will allow for it. So two-hand cast is a great way to cover a lot of water, get a lot of really good distance, but timing that deal, getting it up over your shoulder, you know, always having that rod or the reel in your strong hand, but getting proficient with that with both hands is going to help you throughout the day. If I'm bombing a crankbait all day long, you know, I'm gonna switch back and forth between my hands just due to fatigue a little bit. You know, I may start the day out with my left, you know, part of the day switch to my right, go back to my left, and even just one cast to the next, I'll switch back and forth. It's a great way to you know, to get proficient, because you're not trying to necessarily hit a really specific target. You're just trying to get strong with that hand. So this is a great first cast to learn when you're learning to switch hands with a bait caster and cast with both arms. So one final tip with two-hand casting, especially, and trying to get a lot of distance, once you actually release your thumb, you know, and really letting that spool spin. I don't remember where I had read this, and I truly don't know how much truth is to it, but I do feel like it helps. Holding the reel flat like that, for whatever reason, I feel like will result in a few more backlashes. When you let go of that, if you have that reel kind of laying more on its side, I feel like you get fewer backlashes because of that. So I always try to keep that in mind, especially when it's in my left hand. That's easier for me to do because it's just a little bit more natural roll for me with that wrist. You know, with the right hand, I'd have to roll it all the way over like that. But I do end up with it with the handle up a lot of times. You know, so laying that reel on its side for some reason does seem to get a few less backlashes than holding the reel flat on those really big long casts. So just one final tip to keep in mind. Hope this helps you, especially airing that big crankbait out, getting it way out there deep, and being able to catch some more bass.